Hi everyone. Let me just try to get my lighting going better. Hi. Just waiting for a little bit more time. My glare is just not working today, but that's okay. Ask any questions if you want. All right, so I'm going to be answering some of the questions y'all have asked me leading up to today, okay? So, as you guys know, my name is Dr. Douglas and I'm a dermatology resident. So, let's get started. One of the questions I've been asked is, how did I study for the USMLE Step 1 prep? So, what I have used in the past included UWorld. I used UWorld twice. I was also using first aid. I also used DIT, and I made sure that I did some dedicated, I set out dedicated time to actually do the studying. And made a good schedule for that as well. So make sure you guys are doing that when you are studying for your step 1. And for step 2, I pretty much did the same thing. Maybe the only difference was that I didn't use DIT. So DIT, if you guys aren't aware of what that is, that's Doctors in Training. It is a paid course. I just really, really liked structure. So that's what I used, but I didn't want to use that again for step 2. And of course, make sure when you are studying for step 1 that you are taking practice tests. That's really important. If you have any questions in regards to that, just let me know and make sure you're just chatting to me as well. One of the other questions I was asked was, what is a good book for a derm rotation? So if you're doing a derm rotation, if you're a med student right now thinking about doing a derm rotation, a good book, I would say it's a resource and it's actually a website, and it's the AAD website, where you get just like a free course of a lot of relevant things for your derm curricula. So I don't think you really need to get a book. You just need to register with the AAD website. Another question that someone asked me was, how did I find mentors? I found mentors everywhere. I even have a video about it, but I think the best way is just being open and personable and friendly, and finding people that you aspire to be or inspire you, that you think you can learn from, and just, ask them if they are willing to be a mentor. You can get mentors who are upper class med students in like the second and third or fourth years. You can get mentors through your research program. You can get mentors from a lot of different areas. So just feel comfortable enough to be able to approach someone who you'd like to have as a mentor and just ask them, are you willing to be my mentor? Let's see what other questions. And let me know, guys, in the chat if you have any questions. Another question that someone asked me was, how did I learn to do research and how did I learn to write a paper? I think that's such an interesting question, because you just learn as you go. I think that for a lot of people, when they start research, like their very first research project, they're not sure of what they should be doing. And usually, though, you're always doing it with a principal investigator or you're doing it with who is a faculty member, right? So they've done research before. So when you first start a research project, a lot of times it feels like you are just being thrown into it. That's definitely how I felt when I first started my first research project. I had no clue what I was doing, but my faculty, my principal investigator really just sat me down and would work through a lot of the things that we were going through together. And if they asked me to, submit for the IRB, which is where you have to make sure that your project is approved for you to even start it. My faculty member sat down with me and actually went through the IRB after I sent in a draft. So I knew how to, going forward, send in an IRB. So you learn as you go. Usually people are very supportive when they're working with students and know it's their first project. So but I definitely know the feeling of feeling like you don't know what's going on. I remember feeling for a good while, not even for my first project, not even really understanding what I was supposed to be doing in the research project or what the research project was really supposed to be looking for. But with time I learned, and then the faculty member was really, really helpful as well. So like I said, you learn as you go. And additionally, what was the other part of the question? And how to write the paper. So that's the other thing that they tell you, just, hey, write up this paper, and then you send a draft to them. Good morning. You send a draft to them, and they would tell you like, oh, this is needs edits, and they'll tell you how you should send in your edits. And they'll say, oh, this part is good. So and then they would really be working with you on writing the paper after you send in your draft. So as intimidating as it really is when you start a research project, the faculty member will work with you, even if you don't do as great as a job when you send in your drafts. You'll learn as you continue to move forward with it. Let's see. Oh, so another question here that someone asked me was about personal statements. So I do have a video on writing a personal statement, but I still will get, this glare is terrible, but I still will give you guys tips on writing a personal statement. So when you're writing a personal statement, and you got to remember that it's a story. You want it to be captivating. You don't want the person to be bored. They're reading hundreds, if not thousands, of personal statements. So you want within the first few sentences for the reader to be interested in what you're saying and want to continue reading your personal statement. You really want to, so if you're a med student, you want your personal statement to be talking about what you are interested, why you're interested in going into med school, and what stories in your life led you to this path. And if you are a med student applying to residency program, you're really giving a story about why you're interested in that specific field that you're applying to, and what stories in your life has brought you to that path. You want to bring out the strengths in your personal statement. You want to bring out captivating stories in your personal statement. And of course, if you have red flags, you want to bring it up, but you don't want to bring it up without showing how you have improved or what you have learned from that red flag. So check out my personal statement video if you haven't watched it yet, but those are key tips for what I would suggest for personal statements. I'm going to give you guys like a little, if anybody has questions right now before I continue with like questions that people brought up before. So would a low MCAT be a red flag? So it depends on how low it is, but in general, a low MCAT can be a red flag, but there's a lot of different ways to improve that. So of course, taking the MCAT again, and seeing how you did that way. If you are doing something such as you are a med student and you are doing a lot of research, or you're involved a lot of, or not med student, sorry, if you are pre-med and you're doing a lot of research, or you are doing a lot of extracurricular activities, sometimes your MCAT kind of like those stuff could kind of make up a little bit for your MCAT, because they're no longer just looking at numbers, you're looking at the person themselves. So if you're bringing in a lot of different things on your application as well, sometimes the MCAT does not weigh as heavy. However, a good MCAT is very helpful. But I've seen a lot of people get into med school who had MCATs on the lower side, and that was for everyone, not just underrepresented applicants. That was a great question. So yeah, studying for the MCAT can be very scary. If you guys have watched any of my videos, you know that I did not kill the MCAT whatsoever, and I took it multiple times. I took it like 3 times. However, you will always feel nervous for your MCAT. And now as a derm resident, what I've learned is that you're always going to feel nervous for all of these tests that they make us do. However, you just got to be confident in what you've studied and confident of who you are as a person, and just know that that number isn't going to define you. And I'm sure that there are going to be other aspects of your application that are going to be helpful as well. So don't just put all that weight on that score. Just go in, just making yourself feel comfortable that you studied as much as you were supposed to, that you've done the practice that you had to, and that now you are going to just take the test, and you will see how things go afterwards. I know it's easier said than done. Everyone could try to calm you as much as possible, but you're still going to be nervous. But just know that it's a very normal feeling. Barely anyone goes into the MCAT feeling 100% confident, 100% good. And maybe even afterwards, you still wouldn't feel good about it, but that's totally fine. Just trust in yourself and just wait for the scores to come out. But that's just really it. And trust me, like, it's not just the MCAT, it's everything. Every test that I've taken, when I took shelf exams in my 3rd year, when I did my regular clinical exams in my 1st and 2nd year, I was nervous for every single one of them. All right, so I'm going to answer one of the other questions that I got in advance. So someone asked me, what was my favorite part of med school? I actually am also going to make a video about that, but oh, thank you so much. My favorite part of med school is that the relationships that you form. I love that question because I don't think we stress enough all the good parts about med school. I think that when people hear about med school, they really just hear about how much we have to study, how much we get stressed out. They talk about burnout of med students all the time, and they do talk a lot about the negative aspects of med school. But med school could actually really be fun, especially if you have a good team around you, if you have great friends around you. It could really be a blast. So my favorite part about med school was the friends that I've made, and it's just the experiences that I got from that. And for anyone who's going into med school or planning to go into med school, I definitely recommend that you all take advantage of the awesome opportunities there are in med school. Med school is going to be the time where you're learning, but you're learning medicine, but you can also learn about yourself. There's so many extracurricular activities in med school. There are opportunities to travel abroad. There are opportunities for research. Like, take advantage of it, because there really wouldn't be any other time in your life where you have all those opportunities open to you. And you don't really have that many other responsibilities other than just studying. As a derm resident, there's a lot of things that I thought I wanted to do. And just with time constraints, it's much harder now. And I felt like I had a lot more opportunities to do things when I was a med student. All right. Any questions before I move into one of the other questions that was asked earlier? Okay, so someone asked me, where do I see myself in the next few years? So where I see myself in the next few years, I'm actually not sure. I am, as a derm resident, I am really just trying to soak in all the knowledge that I can get and just try to figure out where I want to go from there. I love so many different aspects of dermatology, and I'm not sure if I'm going to focus on one aspect or be more general. but I'm more than likely going to be more general, but you never know. I'm just in my first year of my derm training. So we'll see. And I think in general, if anyone really like knows just how my journey has been, I've always been a person who wasn't sure where I was going to go until like later on after soaking in all the knowledge, figuring seeing everything around me and then going from there. So we'll see where life takes me. Someone said, does your med school matter? So, okay. So title means a lot, right? Because if you have the title of going to Harvard Med School, like I guess doors open up for you. I will say that my med school was not considered Ivy League, right? But when I applied to dermatology, which already is one of the most competitive fields in medicine, I still got interviews at programs that are considered the Ivy or like the top notch derm programs. So your med school, I guess, matters in the grand scheme of like if you say I'm a doctor from so and so, but I didn't think that I was limited based on the med school that I went to. I know when the match list for my med school was actually great. A lot of my classmates went to Harvard and a lot of the other Ivy Leagues as well. So I definitely think that your future is really what you put into it, not just like a name in itself. Are you in the hospital often as a dermatologist, or is it strictly clinical based? So no, you are in the hospital sometimes. So we do consults, and when you are doing consults, you are actually getting consults from the hospital where they have inpatients coming in and they're concerned just about something that has to do with dermatology, and they'll consult us. And so as a first year, I didn't do the consult month, but I am on call. So if I am on call, there's a possibility for me to go into the hospital on the weekends. And actually, I was recently called in maybe several weeks ago because there was concern that they wanted me to come into the hospital, which I did. So we do go to the hospital. As a second year, I'll be doing more consult months, and also as a third year. But most of our time is done in the clinic. Let's see. And don't forget also, I just want to add on to that, is we also like travel a lot. So in my main clinic, I do consult, but also in one of our other satellite clinics, we do consults there as well. So we do get hospital time. And also for dermatology residents, we spend 1 year doing an intern year. And most of us are doing internal medicine during that first year of our residency training, which is when we're like almost always in the hospital. So as a resident that is considered like a derm resident, you do get hospital experience. All right, let me see another question that was asked in advance. All right, so someone asked, how do I balance just life as a resident? Just as I try to do it with med school and even as a pre-med, it really just, making sure you prioritize, deciding what is most important to you, and really just going from there. I make a schedule just like I did when I was in med school. I don't always cross up everything that's on my schedule, but I do make a schedule. And like I said, I just prioritize, if I have to study, if I have a presentation coming up, those things will be more important than other things. But I definitely think that there's much more ability to have a better work-life balance as a derm resident compared to when I was doing my internal medicine, my intern year training as a first-year resident. I do think that there is a lot more time in general. We do get our weekends. But as a derm resident, in the first year, there was just so much studying. I think I struggled a lot with that work-life balance, but I think things have been getting better now as I've learned to, more prioritize, learn how to more efficiently study. Things have got a lot better in regards to that. All right. So another question someone asked me was the hardest part of med school. I should have done these in order. The hardest part of med school. I think the hardest part of med school is really test taking. There's just so many tests. Well, it also depends on your school because my school was different where we had exams after every at the end of every session or at the end of every block. So let's say we had our heme-onc block. At the end of that block, we'd have an exam. I know some programs where they are testing their med students like every 2 weeks or something like that. So it definitely is different for programs, but in general, at the end of the day, in med school, we are getting a lot of exams and studying can be very draining. And I think maybe the hardest part was maybe studying for step one. I think studying for step one and the months before that, because the months before that, you're getting amped up to study for step one and you're still trying to study your clinical for your courses. And then you are trying to study for step one. And then of course, then when you have the dedication time for step one, that's a bit challenging. So that's the hardest part of med school. But yeah. All right, let's see another question. Okay. Someone asked, what is an advice for an incoming first year med student? So for incoming first year med students, I would say just go into med school with an open mind. I know some people think that they like know exactly what they want to do as a med student, like as a resident, like they know already what field they want to go into, and that's completely fine if you do think so. But just still go in there with an open mind. Go into med school, with an open mind, with a positive attitude. Like, don't go in there just stressing already about like how hard med school is going to be. Like, I remember starting med school and people were already stressing like the first 2 weeks. And I'm like, how can you be like stressing? And I get it. Like, you are trying to figure out your study routine and you want to make sure you're already not falling behind. But like, I think also a lot of people are just stressing because they have in their mindset that med school is going to be hard. So they already come in with that mindset and they're like stressed already. But like come in with a positive attitude and just come in just willing to learn. Like really that's what your faculty is going to be looking for. And that's really what's going to help you become the best doctor is just being willing to learn and just open to learning. And I think if you allow yourself to, you'll have a really good time in med school. Let's see. My home med school is trying to get rid of lectures and focus on physical training. What do you think having gone through med school? That's an interesting, that's really interesting. So let's see. So my school had what they called like an integrated training. I think it's called integrating, where we have PBL and we had lectures. So we actually had only 2 hours of lectures in the day. And then certain days of the week, we would have PBL where it's group-based learning, where you get like a case and you work together as a group to like solve the case and learn from the case. And that was actually only a few hours of training and of learning. And then but by 12 o'clock we were done with like our schoolwork, and then we were able to have what you called independent study time. So the rest of the day was for us to study. So I can kind of see where. Sorry, I'm like trying to answer while seeing the other questions. Okay, so I was trying to see. So what was I saying? So gone through med school. So yeah, so after going through med school, I do think that learning hands-on definitely is the best way to learn. And I definitely think that you still need some structured studying. So I don't know how I think it would be, how it should be, but I think you should still have a little bit of structured learning. I think personally, because I like structure and I like someone talking to me and showing me and where I get to learn from. And then you also have the clinical aspects as well. So having the clinical aspects and then structured. So even as a derm resident, for example, I'm learning every day because I'm working with patients. But then on top of it, we have structured lectures also. You know what I'm saying? So like I don't know how things will be if you just like completely get rid of lectures. I definitely think you always need independent study time for sure. And you definitely need the hands-on training clinically, but I like structured learning, so I do appreciate the lectures. If we get away during rotations, is that a good indicator that the school might interview you in the future? How should you go about selecting during away rotations? Okay. So I don't know if I can say it's a good indicator that you will get an interview in the future. Some programs already even say on their website that you're not guaranteed an interview just because you're doing an away rotation. Some programs actually say that you are guaranteed an interview for if you do the away rotation there. So it's definitely school specific. I think when you're applying for away rotations, you definitely should be thinking about why you want to do the away rotation. Is it because there's a faculty at the institute that you're looking for a letter of rec? Is it because you want to learn about the program itself? Is it because you're, you're hoping for an interview there? You have to ask yourself why you want the away rotation, and then base it on that. So if you want an interview at a certain program, make sure that they say that, hey, like if you are doing an away rotation here, you're more than, even if they don't guarantee it, at least they can say like you're more than likely to get an interview there. Because I know for sure, for example, when I got my interviews, one of the places I did an away at, I did not get an interview at, but they actually said that they would not, they do not guarantee interviews, but I went there for letters of rec. Well, I didn't go there for it, but my goal was not just to learn, but also to get like letters of recommendation. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I definitely, was just banking on that interview. The second place that I did an away rotation at, I actually did it at a bad time of the year. I did it in December. I don't recommend that. And I had already gotten an interview there. So my away rotation didn't help me for that one. And then I got a lot of interviews on the West Coast, and I never stepped foot in the West Coast until I was interviewing. So I knew I had classmates who did aways in the programs that I got interviews at in the West Coast, and they did not get interviews there. So this is why I say you have to be very strategic about where you're applying and why you're applying to it. Hopefully that answered your question. Let's see. Oh, it's the West Coast. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You have to like, you should try to talk to the Derm residents that are there. Oh no, that's the other, someone else said that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. So they will still have presentations at this school that you're talking about that's trying to take away some of the lectures. Yeah, it sounds very different, and to each their own. Everyone learns very differently. I know I just like structure, so I appreciate lectures. But at the end of the day, you're going to learn, and I think that who you become as a doctor is really up to you. So with whatever way they're doing it, I'm sure students will succeed anyway. All right. Any other questions? It looks like we have another like 2 minutes to go. This was fun though. Definitely the next time I'm doing this, how I'm going to work on my lighting, y'all. So thanks for sticking this through with the horrible lighting. All right. No questions right now. I have some more questions that people asked me, so that's okay. All right. So someone asked me why I stayed in my home state for med school, which is an interesting question. So I always recommend that people always apply to their home. The med schools in their home state is just increased chances of getting into those programs. Most programs like the residents of their state. I think it's just because in general, that means you're more than likely to stay onward as just like a doctor. And I think that's one of the reasons. So I stayed in my home state mainly because I applied to those programs. I actually was not one of the people who applied really far out. Like I applied to my home program and then some programs on the other programs on the East Coast, but I didn't apply like down south. I definitely didn't do Texas because Texas was like its own application, and I didn't do the West Coast. I really just did my own programs and my home state programs in the East Coast. And how even though I did it in my own, I applied to my own state, I was in a completely new city, so I definitely still learned of a new place, and I really enjoyed that experience. So yeah, that's the answer to that. All right, I'm going to give you guys just a few more seconds to ask any more questions that you want me to answer right away. But I am definitely planning to do this more to get to know you guys better. I'm really excited to see names and like see you guys and meet y'all. So I'm excited to keep doing this. Are you guys interested in me doing more lives? All right, y'all. Well, have a good one. Thanks for hanging with me today, and I hope to see y'all at my next YouTube lives. Bye.